Welcome to another episode of Morning Mojo with me, your host, Shane Solomon. Today, I'm delighted to have on the sofa with me someone I've been bumping into a few times recently, and I'm keen as mustard to get this podcast underway. And that is, of course, Adam Brooks from Brooks Financial Planning. Welcome to the studio. Long time coming.
Yeah, I think so. It's like passing ships in the night, I think, a little bit between me and you. But,
It really is.
We keep seeing each other at various events, but never really having a good chat.
Exactly.
And then I managed to find myself down at the Pirates, and
Yeah.
I think we missed the entirety of the first half of a game
We did.
talking, and next thing I know, I get an invite, which...
There you are. Well, what a pleasure. Well, I want to get straight into the content, and that is chasing the dream. I think is a great place to start because you started in this industry that you're in at a very young age. You're still very young. So, what is the dream for Adam?
I think the dream changes every time, probably every year, actually, if I'm honest. So if I go back to when I first started in the financial services industry as a whole, I was 18. And like a lot of people, I joined a bank, a national bank. I maybe a little bit brashly applied for a role that I definitely was not qualified to do, but I went for the interview anyway. And I must have done something in that interview that they liked, because they said, look, Adam, you can't be doing this job, but I can give you a job. And that was my start. And actually, after 6 months of doing the first role, I actually got the job that I originally went for. And I haven't looked back. And various changes in circumstances and regulatory pressures that happened in the industry during sort of 09 to 012 meant that my career path, which was always to be an advisor, somebody to advise, it was the one thing that I found that I was good at. The one thing that I found that I could talk to people, that I can engage, I could talk to prince or pauper, I would have something to talk about. And when that sort of industry started to collapse a little bit within the banking world, I needed to go and find somewhere else. And through some conversations and some chance meetings, I ended up leaving a pretty well paid career, for want of a better word, in a bank, and becoming self-employed, and not self-employed in Cornwall, where I grew up all of my life, but deciding to move 2 counties over to Somerset, where I had some opportunity to join a network, which was scary, I guess. There's a lot of people, well, at 25, you don't know anything.
No.
But I was, I don't know, brave or confident in my own ability. And at that time, I had a steady girlfriend who is now my wife. She was at university and I was earning zero. And we worked together. I helped her out. She helped me emotionally, to realize that this was the right thing for me. And after that first year, I couldn't look back. And I've gone from being on my own and being the sort of master of my own destiny to now having 5 advisors, including myself, and 8 members of staff in our Cornwall-based or Southwest-based financial planning.
It's amazing and inspirational. And that's the whole point of this podcast, is to inspire people that are on that journey. They give you all different variants of that journey right now, but certainly the start. But where did you find the belief from and the confidence in yourself to achieve? Where did you pull that resource from?
Probably family in a way. My family, especially on my dad's side, so my dad was in banking. We've come from fairly high achievers, I would like to think. My granddad was worked up from sort of steel lad right through to managing director of a large steel foundries. And my dad, was an inspiration in a way, because he had, I can remember, probably 50 jobs, probably as a kid growing up, until he landed in financial services. And I think when you start to see people that have some form of success, whatever that would be, You feel like actually, look, maybe I can do that as well. And um, I guess I realized that I could. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to do it. And I can do it. And I have been doing it, but I'm definitely not the finished article by any stretch of the imagination. I'm only 35. Started at 25, and I've got a good probably 25, 30 years in this industry still to go. I'm still passionate about it. It hasn't dragged me down, so I do think that I will continue to be there, but we're always changing, we're always evolving.
Right. I want to talk about achieving financial success. Now, not crazy amounts, let's keep it realistic for people. But this is something they don't really teach us in school. Let's be honest. I don't remember sitting in school and they said, right now, this is how you achieve financial independence and what that looks like. And I know you can't advise, and things like that, but just in general, what kind of nuggets can we give people,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
think you've hit the nail right on the head there, really. I believe this should be part of the school curriculum anyway. I think this is an important life lesson for anybody that comes in it, because we just assume that we should know how to open a bank account, what a savings account is, what is interest, what's inflation. Actually, how does that impact our lives, and what benefits of a pension contribution, and what does that actually mean for you in going forward? And the world has changed a lot, where some of these things we're actually taking out of our hands. um, you know, Parents' generation, grandparents' generation were you go to an employment, you get the pension as part of it, and then you finish your employment and they pay you. That's not really the case anymore. So I always say to all of my clients, and anybody that I speak to about, what does financial success look like? And I would say it's relative. It's 100% relative to that individual. Success is what you want it to be. Independence is probably the most important part of that. It's being independent in yourself to be able to achieve what you want to achieve in your goals. And that will take potentially a lifetime to get to, but hopefully you do it in a shorter period of time. And somebody like myself can help guide that person through through that route. You know, we called it Brooks Financial Planning because it's financial planning, not necessarily just financial advice. I think the planning aspect is the most important, and that's where you can breed success. Good planning
And
get
it's
you
not,
there.
yeah, and it's not instant. This is the thing. I've had a couple of podcasts today where we're talking about in different industries like SEO and things
Mm,
like that, where you invest in SEO, but you don't see the returns for a while. Same with social media strategy, but exactly the same with finance and planning.
yeah,
So there's no real quick route to, wealth in terms of money, to get that back, unless you're going to go and rob a bank, which is totally illegal,
yeah.
or do something illegal and trade in drugs or whatever. There's no quick path to riches, is what I'm trying to say.
Uh, Definitely not. Uh, a lot of my job is about risk mitigation and people understanding risk. There is, the quick rich schemes out there.
Mm,
Are obviously, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You could have been an investor in Apple on day one. You weren't going to get a return for maybe 10 to 15 years. Now you could be a multimillionaire, but that's a
indeed.
very high risk.
Mm,
In that scenario, you're investing in a startup out of a garage.
mm.
So you're investing in the people. Um, we look at long term results based on diversified portfolios. And there are some data that we always go back into, and actually some of the very large investment firms that are out there in the world, particularly Russell Investments, did a big study over the last 10 years about the impact that an advisor can have on somebody's investment portfolio. And they worked out on average it's about 5%,
Mm.
5.16% of gain that you make. And majority of that is made up of behaviorals.
Okay.
So just being invested will get you on that journey, but actually having somebody to help guide you and make sure that you don't do the silly mistakes, because rightly or wrongly, we are emotional, and it's very easy for us to see when times are bad and think we need to pull out, and vice versa, when times are good, we want to pull in. And that's the definition of hitting the wrong point on markets, particularly. It's the opportunities are on the downs, the crystallization events are on the ups. And having somebody like ourselves or a good financial planner will help you smooth that out over a period of time.
So my question to you really is, people will be listening to this thinking, I like the idea of having a financial planner, but this sounds like on my realms of getting involved. They'll probably think, oh, I'm not a multimillionaire. I haven't got multiple millions to put into different funds and things. But I guess average Joe can have a start on their independence in financial
And
world or what?
anybody can start. You know, the motto that we have on our website is um, financial advice is there for everybody, but not everybody will take it.
I
Okay.
love that.
And the fact that it's available to everybody, it's probably at least a little bit more niche than it used to be. When I started in banking, there was over 250,000 registered financial advisors. The '08 to '09 market crash and what they called the RDR review in 2012 changed the industry completely. There's probably roughly around about 40 to 50,000 regulated advisors now, but the need has never been higher. So starting your plan early is for everybody. You know, that it doesn't make a difference that you can have a pension at the age of 0.
I wish I did have a pension at the age of 0.
Yeah. And compound effect, compounding is one of the great forces of nature. Having your journey start early, even at smallish amounts, can have a huge impact on your later life. And being part of your journey and having a plan involved is that every time you go up that, say, ladder of success, it might be promotion or change of role or whatever it would be, is just to keep reevaluating. Actually, if I put a percentage of my earnings away, it means I can squirrel that for later. I can access it when I come retired because my earning potentials drop. The ability to earn at 75 is near enough 0. So you've got to make the most of what you can at the time being. When you're starting young in your 20s, life's tough. But having something aside, which is why the incentivifications that are put in place with auto enrollment, pensions, and so forth is a great starting block. But it is a starting block.
Sure.
You need a little bit of nudge on top of that.
It's interesting. Yesterday, I was at the Victoria Inn in Roche, to those who are not au fait with my pronunciation. And there was a local chap in there, and he was 83. He doesn't look like 83. He comes across really young, really. And was talking outside, and he was saying that he's very fortunate. So I'm so glad. He was talking about there was a rise in the state pension. It went up by 25p or something crazy. Well, what's the point of that? He said, what's the point of that? Yes, I'm just lucky that I've got 4 pensions and private pensions I took out. He said, because I won't be able to afford to drink here, because now it's like 5, £6 a pint, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But so Ken, I'll say his first name, I won't say his last name, told me this, and I'm thinking, well, what you were saying about starting off age 0, if you can, someone to do that, but when is it too late? For like someone, for example, in their 40s, early 40s, like 42. I mean, just asking for a friend.
I don't think there's ever a period of time where it's too late. The incentivifications for something like, say, pensions, if we're talking pensions here, there's tax relief. There's the ability to get some gains within the pension immediately. Your contributions to a personal pension plan, you get 20% upfront if you're making the personal contributions. You can also claim against additional or higher rate tax on top of that. So there's some immediate benefit to be able to do that. And people aren't retiring at 55, at 60. If they can, that's because they've done something in the past to be able to get them to that stage going forward. But we're in a society that the state pension age is increasing, rightly or wrongly. The reason for that is the pressure of the fact that we are getting older, and that we can, in our society is not overly labor intensive, more so now than it was before, that people can work a little bit longer. We don't want to. So that's why you should have a plan in place. If you start in your 40s, your 30s, your 20s, or your 50s, retirement at starting point at 60 and you want to finish at 67, you're going to have to be putting a lot of money away,
Yeah.
right or wrongly. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't, because there's some benefits.
So you're telling me I've still got a chance to make a
There's still a chance. Yeah,
Okay,
there's still a chance.
Because as host of this podcast, I'm very open. I'm very open in life in general. But when I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was probably about 17, really, it was like, do you know, I don't need a pension. Well, one, I wasn't really sold them. I wasn't educated them on in school, which is one of these things I wish I was. But I was like, I don't need that. That's for old people. That's old. I don't need that. And besides, I'm going to make a fortune anyway, so I don't need a pension.
Yeah.
Well, here I am in my 40s, still doing stuff for next to nothing for charity as much as I can, and not charging what I should, and not having any real provision apart from my property with my partner. And that's it, and that's the reality, I think, of a lot of people. Do you know what the statistic is for like the amount of people in the UK that doesn't have any provisions for pensions?
I don't know, but
No.
I would be very surprised if it'd be very high. I would say that, like I said, the government brought auto enrollment in to try and stop gap this sort of deficit between work-based pensions that were out there, the defined benefit, the final salary schemes that were so gold-plated that everybody really, silly not to be in them, as it were, at those times, to actually a vast majority of people probably be reliant on the state pension being their biggest source of income in retirement, with something to just top it up. We need to get away from that, unfortunately. And there are huge benefits to being in a pension scheme for lots of different reasons, and also for different walks of life. You may still be lucky enough to be a multimillionaire, but the benefit of what a pension can offer you isn't necessarily just you accessing that pension yourself, but for your future. I made a post today about an article that we wrote about actually death benefits of a pension, and the fact that when you pass away, your pension is not part of your estate, so you pay no inheritance tax on it. It can go to your next of kin. It could go to your grandchildren if you wanted it to.
Interesting. Okay.
It can set them up on the tool.
Sure.
And I think with Cornwall particularly, and I think we're very entrepreneurial. So it's like you said, you start your business early. You start to get in it. You can get involved in your business. You need to start thinking about actually how can your business pay you back for all the hard work that you put into it.
Goodness me, there's a chance it can do that. Wow.
Yes, there is a little. There is a small chance.
Adam, listen, I knew this would happen. The time is whizzing away. Tips and tricks to investing. Is there any, or one bit of,
have a set goal in mind, and that can be I want to have so much money to put a deposit down. Don't get too greedy if that's the case, or it might be a term. The worst thing that I see is that somebody will say, I'm a long-term investor. And then you have short-term volatility, and then they change their complete path overnight because of volatility. And we come back and say, well, look, you're a long-term investor. Short-term volatility happens.
Yes.
I use the analogy of waves and tides. It could be a storm outside. It could be really wavy. But the tide will come in, the tide will come out. And that's what we want to be looking at.
Okay.
So have a set goal in mind. Understand and really realize why you're doing it. That's really important. If you don't believe why you're doing it, then you probably won't do it.
Sure. And what about favorite quotes? Any inspirational quotes or motivational things that you picked up on along your journey?
Probably maybe quintessential for my industry, but the guru of Warren Buffett always looms largely because of being just a normal guy who just happens to do really well. But remember, if you're in the shade, somebody planted a tree to give you that shade. And that's really important. And I probably butchered the quote a little bit, but I always remember the fact that actually you may do something that you may not benefit from immediately. Planting that tree may not give you immediate shade or a fruit, whatever it would be, but in time it will. And it could be something that can be recurring forever. So think about it.
Reap what you say, right?
Exactly.
reap what you sow. You don't have to be great to start. You just have to start to be great. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
might
that's
not
a good
think,
one.
you know,
Yeah.
you might not think you got all the money in the world, but if you just gave 10% of your earnings or something, whatever you're earning,
Yeah.
it's better than nothing, right?
10% of your earnings into a personal pension scheme is grossed up to nearly 13%.
So what? It's what a mindset to have, and it's all about mindset and thinking. And any people you look up to, I think we probably said this at the start, but those mentors, anyone that you follow on YouTube, any books, any kind of authors.
My first real mentor in this industry was probably my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he gave me a huge amount of sage advice, but he was somebody that I could look up to because he was doing it. And then the guy that probably really got me into thinking about not being just a sole trader, but actually maybe looking and building a business and building, somewhere for people to grow themselves was a gentleman called Lee Cooper, who gave me my first role and let me join his practice when I was 25 with no real experience in regulated advice from 2 counties over. And his was a family firm and I was the family member.
Yeah.
And I did learn a lot from him over that time. And, he's built a fantastic business and to get to the stage where we also emulate something like that for Cornwall that he's done in Somerset.
Love it. And of course, your dad, the wonderful Peter Brooks. For those of you who don't know the wonderful Peter, make sure you do a research on LinkedIn and find it. Pretty much retired probably these days, I would have thought, is he not?
Yeah, he's retired from wanting to be involved in the business from a managing point of view. But he just can't help but want to be involved with his clients, and that's great. So he's very much just client focused, dealing with them on a daily basis. But not necessarily taking on a huge amount of new.
Sure. But then it becomes the passion then as well. We talk about that a lot on the Morning Mojo. Well, Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio. There's so many more questions I want to throw your way, but we just can't because we've got to keep this as close to 20 minutes as we can. But hopefully on our anniversary of 12 months of the podcast, we'll get you back in and we'll see where things are then. But thank you so much. Have you enjoyed it?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Well, there you go, Adam Brooks. If you're not already following this man, make sure you do so. As always, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Megan for pulling all this podcast together for me. And also on the mixing, producing side of things today is Josh. So a huge thank you to Josh as well. As always, share it, like it, love it, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And until next time, I will see you in the next episode. Thank you very much indeed.